All righty. Hi, everyone. It is so good to see you all virtually. If this is your first time here at SciCity, welcome. If it's your millionth time here at SciCity, we're really happy that you're here. It's so good to be here, even if it is virtually. I know our building is open. If you haven't had a chance to be in our new building, if you're on campus, if the building is open 9 to 5. We'd love to have you come check it out. So with that, I am Matt Guyon. I am the Director of Student Programming here at SciCity. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. And first, really, whoa, sorry. So the first item is that if you know me, I love my hometown. I love repping my hometown, which is Detroit, Michigan. And I love representing that. And it's also really important to recognize that who was here even before New Haven was a thing, before New Haven in the United States even existed. So with that, Yale University acknowledges that Indigenous peoples and nations, including Mohegan, Mashantucket, Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Scotticoke, Golden Hill Pagusset, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquian-speaking peoples have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. So, also, additionally with that, we really take inclusivity really seriously here at SciCity. So if at any time you don't feel like you're welcome, or you don't feel like you belong here at SciCity, even in this virtual setting, please let me know or someone at SciCity. We would love to be able to change that and making sure that you feel welcomed and invited and be part of SciCity. We want you to be here. So feel free to reach out at any point. With that, love to get started on talking about no-code tools and really just software tools in general. Just talking about like how software tools can be really helpful in whatever type of innovation you're getting started with. But the other thing I'll mention too before I forget, feel free to keep your cameras off. That's totally okay. I know like we're in a really busy season of the semester and starting it. The only thing I will ask is that we engage through the chat and using those little emojis that you can use here on Slack, or not on Slack, on Zoom. That would be really, really helpful. And also, if you're not speaking, if you can just mute your microphones, so that way we're not getting any echo or anything like that. It's really, really helpful. So if you don't know me though, like I mentioned, I am the Director of Student Programming here at SciCity. I originally, like I mentioned, come from the state of Michigan. I'm Detroiter, Metro Detroiter at heart. I went to a small little school named Hope College back in Michigan, where I started a company called Fathom, where we made underwater drones. As you can see in that photo on the screen, we raised about $200,000 on Kickstarter. We went through Techstars. We also pitched to Daymond John from Shark Tank, which is lots of stories with that. But also while I was doing all of that, I was also the entrepreneur in residence at Hope College and at Grand Valley State University before coming here to Yale and SciCity about a year ago, actually almost to the day, which is really exciting. So that's me, but I want to get to know all of you a little bit, or actually before we do that. So just to give you just a quick plan for this workshop. So first part we're going to cover just minimum viable products and an example of what that might look like. Really we want to make sure like we have kind of a basic understanding so that we can use that as a template to go in. And then we're going to go into like the hallway of tools. So now in this workshop, we're going to cover a lot of different like no code tools, software tools, and we're not going to like deep dive into really any of them. Really what I'm trying to do is if you think of them as like, this hallway and each tool is a door, I'm going to at least point to the doors for you, but it's going to be on you to actually like dive into them. I'm happy to also dive into any of them in office hours, anything like that as well. Then the last part of it is really like how to make these tools work together and like some general rules that I like to use when I'm using software tools and automations. So also Jay in the chat, thanks for the good question. This recording will definitely be made available afterwards. It'll be on our YouTube channel for that too. So, and I'll still share the slides too. So don't feel like you have to like write every single tool down or anything like that. I know there's gonna be a lot of links and a lot of tools we're gonna cover in this. So I'll share the slides too in an email following this. All right, so if you could in the chat, put what brought you to this workshop? Like, what are you working on? Like, why is this like this workshop about software tools, no code tools really interesting to you? Very cool so far. Well, pretty diverse too. That's awesome. Airtables, API makes sense. Insurance tax, sweet. Knowledge. No, apply to Launchpad. Awesome. We're in the thick of it for Launchpad and decisions on that. So glad you applied. Glad you applied to Launchpad. And if you don't know about Launchpad Accelerator, you should check out our website for those different things. Well, very cool. That's all really helpful. All right, one more question to put in the chat. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being like the least techie and 5 being like, you know how to code and you're like a tech wizard, like how techie are you? 0.7, I love it. 7, wow, really techie. All right, we have a lot of techies, which is awesome. All right, well, we are a really diverse group when it comes to techiness, it seems like. So that's awesome too. That's really helpful. So thank you for sharing that. As we go, feel free to put questions in the chat, or you even use the raise hand feature here on Zoom. I'm happy to answer questions as we go out throughout it. I'm much better as like conversationalist than like a teacher, like just kind of lecturing. So feel free to just kind of get a conversation going. I'm much better in that format. So with that, let's get into a little bit of the weeds. So why are tools really important? Well, and, you're building a venture, whether it's a venture, a project, initiative, it can be, there's a lot of balls in the air and you can get frustrating and stressful really quickly. And tools can help, go from this really stressful person into like eliminating a lot of the stresses, or at least making your life a lot easier because it helps manage all the balls in the air, or maybe even eliminate some of them because you're maybe automating different things. Whatever it might be, the goal is to get you to go from this really stressed out person to like having a party in the office because you've made life a lot easier with all these tools. And so a few ways how that happens, right? There's one is that it helps you make wonderful processes that help you keep your sanity, whether that's like communication processes, it might be just workflows. It's something that we've been working on here at SciCity, just so we can help more of you, of students and the general community here at Yale about innovation. Second, you all have unique skill sets and experiences, and we want to make sure as you're working, you don't be able to show those off. You don't really use that uniqueness and skill set as much as possible. So the more like mundane tasks like email, like the same email each and every time, or doing like a task that could be automated, like that's not using your uniqueness and skill set really efficiently. So these tools can help you make sure that your uniqueness and skill sets are really getting used more and more, which is what we want to have. Third part, as a startup, this is like way easier said than done, is that if you can really get good at tools, sometimes you can over deliver, right? You can under promise and over deliver. That's kind of the goal. And all of this is kind of shock everyone, saying like they actually did that. So that's what software tools can really help with, is helping you over deliver on maybe like goals or like anything like that. Fourth, if you're building a venture, it's also really key. You're gonna be adding team members, right? And even if it's like one person that's coming on later on, if you're building like good workflows and good tools and using them effectively, onboarding them and building a culture, like built tools can really help with that. And fifth, last but definitely not least, is building minimum viable products, or MVPs. You can build them really fast and cheaper, a lot with like software tools, specifically like no code tools that we're going to talk about in this workshop. All right, MVPs. Okay, like I mentioned, I like to rep my hometown, love my Detroit Pistons, and we're not talking about MVPs like Kate Cunningham, but hopefully you're basketball fans and maybe can relate to that. So let's talk about how to build an MVP, at least the way to think about it, right? So you look at the top of that, right? If you're building an MVP for a car, you wouldn't build it as like the wheels and the axles and like the body. You would build it as if like you're moving, like how do we move people and goods, right? So that maybe the first MVP might be a skateboard, and the second might be a scooter, and a third might be a bike and a motorcycle and so on, right? Each one of those on the bottom line, right, can be used. On the top line, you can't actually use them, so they're not they're not viable. They might be minimum, but they're not viable as individual products, at least for the problem that you're trying to solve. So with that, like you want to be thinking as you're maybe building your new venture or building your idea, what is the absolute minimum that like solves that problem for the customer or your user that you're trying to solve the problem for? Like what is, even if it's really not scalable, even if it's really manual, like what is the absolute minimum that it's a not only minimum, but a viable product moving it forward. So let's think about it in maybe in some more practical terms. How would, feel free to put answers in the chat. Like, how would you create Airbnb today? The tools even like a decade ago are a lot different. So like, how would you go from like their MVP all the way to present day? Like what requirements would be like in that MVP? And feel free to put some answers in the chat. Or even shout them out too. A website, yeah, that would definitely be needed. An app, maybe. I would say instead of an app, you need tools. Database, yeah, that's a good one. Interface, API, lots of houses. Yeah, there we go. Houses and contact, yep, that's amazing. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good list, right? So you need like the minimum, like the absolute minimum for Airbnb to, to really do things would be, we need a lot of, people looking for like places to go, and you need homeowners, or at least people that own a property or like property managers. So, and then you need to connect those two. So if you're building an MVP for an Airbnb, here's one way it can look like. The cool part about entrepreneurship and innovation, right, is that it's part science, but also part art. So it's kind of the cool part if you're, a founder or really an innovation of any type, is that you can craft it in your own personal style. But if I was attacking this problem, here's kind of the way I would think about having an MVP. And that would be like Google Forms and Airtable. And if you don't know, maybe you don't know Airtable, that's okay. We're going to cover it a little bit here. So right, you can have a Google form that says, here's like the host form, here's a form for guests, and then based on people, kind of submitting their information, right, you can then match, based on their data and what they're submitting. So let's say, the guest wants to come to New Haven for 2 days, and there's a host that has a house that's available for those 2 days. Well, then you could like manually make that connection. Yes, you might not necessarily make a transaction fee right away, but you're at least proving the concept. You're proving that there's viability to it, and you can figure out like the different monetization pieces and those different pieces and like the next version of it. Now, to make those matches, you might, like for me, I love Airtable. And Airtable, if you want to think about, if you don't know what Airtable is a tool that is like Google Sheets or like Microsoft Excel, except it's mainly for data. So you would never build like a financial model within Airtable, but you would build you'd have like a CRM in there. You'd have maybe you're managing an event and there's a bunch of people information you need to have. Like you can manage it all through Airtable, which is really, really wonderful. So for me, I would put everything in an Airtable and like match the hosts and the guests using Airtable. So everything's being tracked, and you can even like send automated emails through Airtable, which is partly what I love really well. So that's kind of a quick note on Airtable, or like MVPs, just like so you can help wrap mind around it. And hopefully, like as we go through different tools, if you're still in the MVP, if you're building an MVP right now, like hopefully that can help spark some ideas as we go through these different tools. All right. The other thing I'll mention too is that as you're building your product or service, it's really, myself included, it's really easy to be thinking about, oh, this is like the ideal, like this is what we need, like this is the ideal like product that we want to build. And it's really easy to like build all the way to that and then launch. But really, like your product is never going to be finished, your service is never going to be finished. And that's why we have product roadmaps. So like on the screen, you see, if you know the social media service app called Buffer. This is actually Buffer's product roadmap. And Buffer is a multi-million-dollar, startup, not even a startup, just a business that does really, really well, but they're still building on the product. They're still iterating, they're still developing. And that's going to be, if you're building a new startup or a new venture or a new innovation, it's always going to be iterating. There's never truly an end game. There's always like these, what I like to call it, think about it, is like snapshots. And really, like when you're building an MVP, is that you're just kind of building that very first snapshot and then building on top of it. So hopefully that helps you kind of think through MVPs. If there's any questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat or even shout them out too. All right. Okay, so that is MVPs in a nutshell. Now we're gonna go over like, oops, I really have a question. All right. So, so now, like I mentioned, we're going to go through like this hallway of tools. We're not going to go deep diving into these different tools. Um, it's really just like recognizing and know, like kind of showing you where the tools are. So maybe it's different. Everyone's kind of got different innovations and different ventures you're building, as like you put in the chat. So we're just going to go and show you where the tools are, and then you can kind of pick from there which ones you want to deep dive into. So let's get into like the main ones. Like if you talk to anyone outside of Yale or even here at Yale about no code tools, like what does that even mean? Like what are like the big tools that everyone kind of talks about? So one of the first ones that I was introduced to, if you're someone that loves Google Sheets or really just like spreadsheets and things that way, Glide is one of them that can be really helpful. So like it shows on their, like this is their front page of their website, you can build an app from a Google Sheet literally in 5 minutes. So if you're like a lot of the tools, like there's different templates. So it's really cool though, because you can just have a Google Sheet and then they create an app based on that. So again, this is like easy MVP building that probably even like better than MVP, because it's gonna be a really pretty MVP and most MVPs are pretty scrappy. So this is like an easy way, especially if you're doing like the Airbnb style, like this might actually work really well, right? Because there's like, if we're managing data through like a sheet, like an Airtable, like Glide might be a really nice fit for building an MVP. Now, if you're like, hey, like Glide doesn't really work, it's too basic, that's okay. There's also this tool called Bubble. Bubble is what we actually did an intensive last year on this a little bit. And the really cool part is that you can actually build like full web apps without any code. So if you know, like if you've used like Adobe XD or really any Adobe products, you might pick up like Bubble like pretty quick, because Bubble is very, very similar to like an Adobe XD or like Photoshop, except instead of it just being like a design piece of it, there you build out the like what they call workflows to connect the different buttons and whatnot, and so that they all kind of link together. And then instead of it just being like a non-working thing and this looks pretty, it actually works and functions. So that's really cool about Bubble, is it's really developed. And also the cool part is that you can scale with it. So even if you start with Bubble and then like grow as a company, grow as a venture, grows as an innovation, you can keep up with Bubble. At least that's the way it's kind of showing. And if you're like, hey, this actually doesn't work, there's actually code on the back end that you can export and then just like code off of that. And from what I've learned and from what I've been told is that the code is actually pretty clean. So that's a really cool feature, is to be able to build like an MVP really quickly in Bubble. It might take like a few weeks, but a few weeks is a lot better than 3 to 6 months or whatnot, or even a year to build an MVP in code or whatnot. So again, this is a really nice tool. If you know like any of the design tools, Bubble can be like, there's a little bit of a learning curve still, but it's not very steep. It's pretty, you can kind of pick it up once you get used to it a little bit. And then this is just an example of a company that's actually using it. Like they're a company that helps freelancers like manage their invoices and whatnot, kind of like a QuickBooks. And they have their entire tool built in Bubble, and they're still like, they've raised money and whatnot. So it's really, really cool that they actually don't have a coding team. They have just like no code developers, which is, a little more sometimes, more effective, or maybe a little bit easier to find that talent, especially if you're in software and whatnot. All right. The third no-code tool I'm going to talk about is if you really love like Squarespace or Wix, those can be really nice tools, especially to get you off the ground with building your website and whatnot. But they're not made for everyone, and they have like really like they're structured, right? Like, and they're meant to be helping the beginners of like getting into web development. Webflow is like taking like a Squarespace or a Wix and really putting that on steroids, and gives you full customized. You can customize it any way you want. So like there are templates available, but there's ways to build it in your own way. So if you want to like, hey, this button, we want it to hover, or we want a shadow on it, like every little detail you can actually customize and fit to your needs. So it's a little bit of a learning curve to it as well, but it's not like, if you've used like a Squarespace or Wix before, it's not too much of a learning curve. It may take you like maybe a morning, maybe a day to kind of get the nuances of Webflow, but it's a really, really powerful tool. And a lot of startups are actually moving towards it, at least on the coast. They seem to be moving towards it quite a bit for their websites. So really powerful tool, especially if you want some more customization around your website, and maybe you don't need the full-blown app like you would like Bubble or Glide apps, kind of thing like that. So, all right, I'm gonna take a sip of water. All right, Any questions before we get in that, feel free to put them in the chat too. But okay. All right. One of the topics that I really have learned, like in my experiences, I really love is task management and communication, because we don't want you to feel like this, right? We don't want to like you coming into the office or seeing your teammates and feeling like you hate them because communication hasn't been good enough or task management hasn't been good enough. That is like the absolute worst case scenario. And I've been in that, I've been Michael here in this GIF before. I've felt really frustrated with my own team because one, I didn't set us up for good task management. I didn't set us up for good communication. And there's ways to make this really easy, even if it's really simple. So just going to cover this. These are kind of no-code tools, kind of not, but at least when I cover them. So there's like Asana, Trello, Basecamp, Slack is a popular one, which I'm sure a lot of you know. Definitely use these tools, like picking, if you use Asana and Slack together, Trello and Slack here at SciCity, we use Trello and we use Slack really heavily to manage all of our programs here at SciCity. So use them, even if if it's just you, because it helps you keep your chaos really simplified, or at least if there's a list, there's it just helps you keep the chaos a little less stressful and organized. And as you maybe add a co-founder, add teammates, that can be really helpful for onboarding them, because you already have systems on even your personal side that's really helpful. So again, we're just gonna tell you that they exist and kind of tell why they're important, but we're not going to go diving in. But the link, everything is linked, and the slides will be shared too. All right. One thing that another thing that I'm passionate about is making sure documents and storage are on one place and they're organized. It's really easy, especially if you have multiple team members. Hey, we have our investment documents over in Google Docs. We have our our marketing materials in Notion or in Dropbox. Everything's kind of everywhere. And that creates a lot of chaos, especially let's say, when I was at Fathom, it was we had investment documents saved on my personal computer, and then they were in Google Drive, and they were kind of everywhere. So when it came to raising money, it was just, I spent 2 days to try to organize everything and get everything together. But if you have a system, if you can build a system right off the bat saying hey, we use Dropbox, everything's living in there, that's going to make your life not only easier now, but it's going to make your life as you grow as a venture, as you continue with it, really easy, because everything's in one place. And as you add team members, again, it's going to you can just share that folder link and everything's going to be there for them. You don't have to go hunting for all the documents. And the top one there, the Notion tool, if you haven't seen Notion, Notion is really cool because it's kind of a do-it-all tool. Notion, it works a lot like Google Docs, except it's this kind of like a web page. So as you can see, if you don't know, Lita Taub, who is an investor, also just a startup employee, super startup-y person on Twitter. She has this really cool startup investor matching tool that she built. It's all in Airtable and Notion actually works as her web page, which is super cool. So that can be if you're just kind of again building an MVP and just don't want to have a giant website, just build a Notion document and you can use that as your website. At least for now, at least to get people interested, and you can collect emails. Again, you can embed Twitter tweets. It's a really flexible tool, and you can do note keeping in there. It can serve, a lot of teams actually use it as a wiki. So that's another place to kind of have it as an information hub internally. And then a question in the chat: do you recommend AWS? So I don't have a ton of experience with AWS. I'll just caveat that. We used it a little bit at Fathom, and it worked pretty well for us for hosting our app and things like that. It can get costly once you get really growing, but I think usually the benefits outweigh the costs typically. I've had multiple founder friends, they're still on AWS, they use it quite a bit. But personally, I don't have a lot of great experiences with it. So hopefully it sort of answers your question about it. So I'm not going to fully endorse it, but it seems from what I've been told and what my little experiences with it, it seems like it's a pretty decent tool. But if anyone else, and I know there's a few other people that probably have used AWS, feel free to put your answers in the chat too. I'd love to hear that feedback too. All right. Oops, what did I just do? Oh, I clicked on the link. Okay. All right. All right. So one thing for all of you is doing lead generation, right? If you're building a new startup, getting customers, getting those early adopters can be really challenging and really tricky. So how do you do that in an efficient, effective manner is like can actually be done with a lot of different tools. So here is a full list that can help you a little bit. Kind of going from different avenues. So you can see like Apollo and Seamless and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Those can be all really helpful tools, especially if you're in like B2B sales or anything that's working with like business to business or like organizations that are working with other organizations. Excuse me. Those tools can be really, really helpful for finding the right people and not just like blasting it out on a LinkedIn post. You can be really specific. So for example, if you're looking for like, automotive companies that, have this, particular component, you can probably search like within LinkedIn or Seamless or Apollo, like, hey, we want to find this type of executive at this type of company, like this size. That would be really cool. If you're in like the B2C or like doing social media, Buffer, like I mentioned earlier a little bit, and Later are really, fantastic tools for helping to manage social media. Later has a lot of beautiful blog posts. If you're learning, like just getting into social media, lots of really amazing content on Later's blog. If you're into like building out content libraries like blogging and YouTube, all the like Ahrefs, Ubersuggest, TubeBuddy, phenomenal tools for helping with like search engine optimization or SEO. If you're looking for like like for different people's emails, RocketReach can be helpful with that. And then Drift and Intercom are actually like, those little chat bots that can pop up. You can build up chat, like a chat function on your website. Drift actually still has like their free plan, which is really cool. You can have like a free, it's this like little chat bot, which helps like getting more customers kind of engage with you. And it's free, but Intercom, if you know, they're kind of like, I feel like the standard. If you're going to use a chat bot and like really want to invest in it, Intercom seems to be like top one there. All right, going to the questions really quick. Feature I'm looking for. Oh, it's a technical question. I don't know if I have a good answer for you on that. Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I'm sorry. I don't have a good, I'm not yeah, I'm sorry. But if someone else is in there, thanks Alex for the AWS experience. But if anyone else has for Jade Rodriguez, that would be awesome. Because that is definitely not my expertise there. Awesome. So, and then on the screen, you can see there's Apollo. You can see, right, like if you search computer software and like retail, you can kind of get really specific on who you're looking for. Ubersuggest, if you're doing SEO, like so for example, you can see the underwater drone. I can see like, hey, here's search volume on Google. Like, how easy is it for us to rank for that different keyword? That can be, it's a free tool too as well. So it's really, really powerful. If you want to like take that next step, Ahrefs, amazing. That tool is unbelievable. When I was at Fathom, you can get really, really nerdy in SEO if that's something you want to go toward. All right. We kind of mentioned a little bit like CRMs, customer relationship management, and data. Like, how do you manage all that, especially if you're bringing on your first customers and everything like that? Like, how do you manage that and just kind of keep relationships going? So I really recommend using a CRM, especially like early stage, or maybe not super early stage, but once you get kind of past that MVP stage and you've gone past like, hey, we have our first 30 customers. Once you kind of reach that moment of like, oh, I don't remember their name, but I remember like maybe talking to them, but you really want to build like a systems that help you, like, especially if it's multiple team members, so you have relationships and you're kind of managing and looking, like seeing what they look like. So to get started, one really, I think a starting point for a lot of different founders is actually when they do, like if you're fundraising, that can be a really good starting point to learn maybe these CRMs a little bit. So if you're building like your investor pipeline, you could, here's all of our, leads for investors that might be a good fit. And then you can kind of track them as you go in the different stages. And so you can see how to look like, how are we doing? Like, everything organized. You're not just like sending emails and like, oh, I don't remember if I emailed them. Like, let's search it. Like, everything can be in one spot and you know that they're there. Now, with CRMs, you probably won't keep the same CRM that you're using maybe at this really early stage. As you grow as a team, as the venture grows, it's probably going to change. So don't feel like you're locked into those different tools. So a lot of, like myself included, is that I've used Streak, I've used HubSpot, I've used Pipedrive. Those are like, I feel like the top 3 of CRMs if you're just getting started. And then eventually I feel like a lot of companies, they go to Salesforce. We use Salesforce here at Citi. But also a tool that I really love, like I mentioned earlier, is Airtable, and you can actually build Airtable into a CRM as well. So HubSpot, like there's kind of like what HubSpot looks like. It's a completely free tool. So if you're into free, if you need a free tool, which I know that's a really popular thing, HubSpot is really clean. It's really awesome. You can track actually your emails in there too. You can actually email in there as well. Really powerful tool, and it's free. So that's awesome. Here's what Airtable looks like. I showed this maybe, I think it's maybe in the same screenshot earlier. You can kind of track values. It's a little more customizable as like the other CRMs are more locked in and like how the processes work. So if you're looking for maybe a little more complexity or like to kind of fit your processes, Airtable might be the right fit for you. Okay, so that we've kind of gone over like a bunch of tools. I have a whole list of tools also later on that I'll just kind of make available. We're not gonna really talk about them, but just want to at least like point them out, show them like they're here. But how do you like, if you're signing up for these different tools, how are you like, how can you put them together and make them work together? The cool part is that a lot of these tools, they know that they're starting to work together more and more and more. So like Trello, Airtable, and Asana, like the tools we mentioned earlier, they all actually have, they're starting to build pre-built-in automations. So for example, let's say you're like managing events in Airtable, and once an event turns into something to do, it can send a task into Trello automatically. So that's a super cool. Instead of having to send an email or different like a Slack message to someone on your team, you actually can just like change the status and then it sends them a message or like adds it to their task list. So it's you're streamlining communication and also like saving everyone a bunch of time because even sending one Slack message, that adds up because you're thinking about it, you gotta type it, like it takes like 30 seconds or a minute, like calculate, like, adding all that up, like that can take a lot of time. So if you can simplify that, like that's really valuable and like helps eliminates a lot of mundane tasks. The other cool tool, if they don't have pre-built-in tools, tool that I think a lot of people use, and we use it here at Citi as well, is Zapier. It's free to an extent. I think the first like 50 tasks are free. So an example might be, let's say you're using like Apollo or LinkedIn, like Sales Navigator. Once you say, okay, this is a good lead, then you can have it like Zapier, then send it from Apollo to your CRM, and like everything's connected in there. So that's really, really cool is that you can connect all these different tools, like even if they don't have automations built in, a lot of them are on Zapier. And Zapier, if you want to think of like, if you don't know what Zapier is like, if you think of the internet as a house, Zapier is a lot like the pipes in a house. They kind of just connects everything. All right, general rules. Tools fit you, you don't fit the tool. And what I mean by that is if you already have really good processes and good systems, don't try to change your systems or processes just because the tool doesn't fit your current good ones. Now, if you don't have good processes, don't have good systems, like it's okay to just lean in to whatever the processes, the tools are like kind of forcing you into sometimes, because I can at least get you started. And as you grow, as you kind of learn different systems and workflows, you can kind of adjust as you need to. And with automations and these no-code tools, automations are great, but don't abuse them. You want to make sure that's a better experience for everyone involved. So what you don't want to be, if you're on LinkedIn, you probably have gotten a lot of spam like invites or anything like that. Don't be that person. Automations, like that's all automated. Like, please don't be that person. It's not making a better experience for everyone. But when automations are great, like let's say, for example, if you applied to a venture development program, whether this semester or last, back in the spring, you probably got an automated email from me. It probably looked like it came from me, but it definitely wasn't from me. It came from like an Airtable automated email. And so that's really cool. Is like, instead of me having to send the same email, just like maybe changing names or changing some information, I can just change the status. It looks like a personal email, and everyone's getting this information they need to, and saving me a lot of time. So I can then work, in office hours more. I can do, more of the things that are really, more important than just sending another email. All right. Then the other thing that I like to do is have like what I think of like role model companies when it comes to like no-code tools or the systems and processes. So one company, like I mentioned, is Buffer. Buffer actually has like all their tools public and what they use. They're a big Trello company, which is I really love. If you're on Twitter, a kind of a nice little hack that you can do is search Twitter with like tech stack. And like if you're looking for like specific tool, like let's say you love Trello or you love Asana, like you can just tech stack, Asana, search that in Trello, and like a bunch of people's different tech stacks will show up, and you can be like inspired by like, oh, that tool's really interesting. You can learn different tools and like match them with whatever tech you already have and no code tools you're already using. So that's kind of a nice little hack. The other thing, which I don't think gets talked about enough, is that feel free to reach out to others. Like if you're working, if you see another startup and they're doing really amazing things, and you're like, how are they doing so much with such a little resources? Like there could be around tools around that, or like if they're doing, maybe it's really obvious they're using a different, like a new tool. Feel free to reach out to people. It doesn't, like cold emailing people doesn't hurt. Or even here at City, you're like, how did you do that? Like feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to like kind of show it a little bit at least. All right, so we're getting to the end here. And I just want to like kind of show off a little bunch of tools. I'm not going to talk about every one of them because there's a lot. But if you're looking for like managing emails and newsletters, ConvertKit, MailChimp are probably the two of my favorites. MailChimp, we'll see how that goes. If you don't know, they just got acquired for billions of dollars. And they were a bootstrap company, meaning they didn't take any investors. So that's pretty impressive. But these tools can be really cool. Like Outstatic can actually do memberships for you and like integrate with a bunch of things. And I know just looking at venture development and like kind of being around here at City, community building is a really big thing right now. If you want to learn more or like kind of see what community building might look like virtually, Circle is one of my favorite tools here at City. And then last thing with content creation, if content is a really big deal right now, it's a huge deal. These are some tools that might be really helpful, like Transistor, Squadcast, Zencastr for podcasting, Anchor for podcasting. And then let's say maybe you're building a physical product. So maybe it's like food venture or whatnot. If you really want to get good product photos, Suna is actually a really amazing tool. You can send your product in with them and like you can do a virtual photo shoot with them. We had Liz, who's the founder of them, actually speak last year. It was really, really awesome. And they have a really, really cool startup that they're building. But so if you're looking for product images, Suna can be really helpful with that. All right, so there's a question in the chat. So how do you balance out wireframing an app website versus creating the MVP? Wireframe. Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for the way I like to some people can just jump into like a bubble or like glide and like just start like creating. Like I'm not that person. That's not me. What I like to do is actually just whiteboard everything really quickly. Like just even if it's like photo here and like kind of draw it really quick. So like very quick sketches and then kind of build from there. Because sometimes there might be like a tool in like a Webflow or a Glide that you're like, you don't even know it exists yet, but then you like look at the tutorial, you're like, oh yeah, that would be cool to have like in this part of it. So I would say like find your personal style with that, but also like you don't want to be spending like 3 weeks building an MVP. Like MVPs should like hopefully like not everyone can build them really quick. It depends on the venture and whatnot. But you know, the faster you can get them, the better. So even if it's like, hey, here's our website, put your email here, here's what we do, like that's easy, like that's awesome. You know, the simpler the better, and then like build on top of that the more you can. Just for like another proof point, like here at City, when we look at applications, and most investors look at this too, like the traction is like the big piece that we look at. And it's the big, you know, it's important for all of you as well to have that traction and like customer validation or like user engagement. So even if the product isn't fully the way you want it, like just having people like validating what you're doing and that like you're solving a real world problem, like that goes a really long way. So like I would, you know, just start building an MVP, like even if it's a little rough, it's okay. Glide and Bubble and Webflow can be helpful to help smooth out the edges a little bit. But it's okay. Like I think the Y Combinator advice is like if you're not like embarrassed to show your MVP, like you launched it properly or you launched it too late. So like it's okay to be a little like, oh, like there's flaws in this, but you know it's not perfect. So that's okay. Hopefully answers that question too, Kevin. And last thing that I'll end with, and then we can like happy to like stick around, is that I'm in the Sci-City building Thursdays and Fridays. Also around for virtual office hours as well. If you go to city.yale.edu, there's all of our office hours here at City. I'm happy to meet and like talk no-code tools and like talk MVPs, talk ideas. Always happy to. You can always email me as well, which is on the screen. So with that, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening to me. I'm really appreciative. Really glad you're all here. If you have any questions, I'll be sticking around. But otherwise, have a really wonderful night. And yeah, again, I'll just stick around. Thank you for being here.